Football is all about emotion, from absolute joy to utter heartbreak, and the World Cup has had more than its fair share of emotional moments, from fans getting the gift of a lifetime, to players honoring those who mean everything to them, to teams suffering the cruelest of fates. These are the most emotional moments in World Cup history. And starting off, in 2022, Morocco made history as the first African and first Middle Eastern team to reach the semi-finals of the World Cup. After their 1-0 win against Portugal, fans in cities around the world lit flares and honked their car horns as they celebrated Morocco's triumph as a victory not just for one country, but for the whole of the Middle East. But Morocco's players celebrated in a different way. They wanted to honor the people most important to their success, their mothers. Morocco's Sofiane Boufal invited his mum onto the pitch and danced with her in joy in front of the whole world, showing everyone what was most important: family, and honoring those who sacrificed so much so that their sons could succeed. And he wasn't the only Moroccan to show the world how much his mum meant to him. In the previous round against Spain, Achraf Hakimi ran to his mum to celebrate after scoring the winning penalty, and also tweeted, "I love you, mum," after a picture of Hakimi hugging his mum went viral earlier in the tournament. Morocco had brought the players' families out with them to Qatar to give them that extra support, and it really paid off. Hakimi said after the win against Spain that his mother was a cleaner and father a street vendor, saying, "They gave up their lives for me, and today I play for them." And while Morocco were the first African side to reach the semifinals, Ghana should have reached that stage 12 years earlier, if not for one moment that still leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. With the score between Ghana and Uruguay tied at 1 goal each, their 2010 World Cup quarterfinal went to extra time, and the chance of making history weighed on Ghana's shoulders during that tense 30 minutes. While Ghana looked stronger, the game was quickly heading to penalties when, in the 120th minute, with almost the last kick of the match, a Ghana free kick led to a scramble in the box and fell to Dominic Adia, whose header flew towards goal. But standing on the line was Luis Suarez, who leapt with both hands and pushed the ball out of the goal. A deliberate handball, an act of cheating to deny what would have been the goal to send Ghana to the semi-finals. Suarez was sent off, and Ghana had a penalty kick, which Asamoah Gyan smashed against the crossbar, and Ghana were in tears as they crashed out minutes later in the penalty shootout. Suarez showed no remorse, saying he made the best save of the tournament, but Ghana's anger lasted far beyond the tournament, and even 10 years after the incident, it still pains Ghana's players anytime they think about it. One of Ghana's players said, "We were crying, and you see someone who has cheated us is celebrating. How can I forgive him? Never, ever." And there's some tear-jerkers to come, including players who felt like they let down a whole nation, another who cried for the final 20 minutes of a match, and others who gave their country a moment of pride that means more than anything. But one World Cup hero decided to dedicate his victory to a friend who died a decade earlier. In 2018, Daniel Subasic did something no other goalkeeper had done in the past 12 years. He saved 3 penalties in a World Cup shootout against Denmark to take Croatia into the quarterfinals. He celebrated by lifting up his jersey to reveal a shirt with a picture of an old friend. Subasic had been wearing variations of this shirt under his jersey for 10 years, and after the biggest moment of his career, he revealed it to the world. The man in the picture was Hrvoje Čustić, a Croatian under-21 international with great promise who was playing alongside Subasic for Croatian side NK Zadar in 2008, when in one match he collided with a concrete wall on the side of the pitch, hitting his head. Čustić was put into a coma but died 3 days later. He was just 24. From then on, Subasic wore Čustić's image on a shirt under his goalkeeper jersey to honor his memory. He broke down in tears when explaining the meaning of the shirt to the media after the match and says, "Hrvoje will always be with me, not only on a t-shirt but also in my heart." Subasic's goalkeeping heroics took Croatia all the way to the World Cup final that summer, but that image of Čustić was not seen again. FIFA, showing a complete lack of empathy, banned Subasic from revealing the shirt. Some World Cup teams inspire neutrals with their dazzling play or underdog heroics, but it's probably fair to say that Germany aren't many people's second favorite team, as Die Mannschaft have been known for their rough, efficient, but rather dull defense-first football. But in 2006, Germany hosted the World Cup and tried to change that image with a young, progressive, high-energy, attack-minded team under head coach Jurgen Klinsmann, and with the World Cup giving the country a chance to show a united, modern Germany of East and West, Klinsmann's side inspired the nation and created a party atmosphere across Germany as the free-scoring team cruised through the group stage and reached the semi-final. But all parties have to come to an end, and Germany's ended in the cruelest way possible when, in what was probably the game of the tournament, Italy broke Germany's heart when they scored in the 119th minute to knock Germany out of their home tournament and drive their fans to tears as their dreams of glory were shattered. Now, playing for the national team brings a huge amount of pressure, and for some star players who have the weight of their team and their whole country on their shoulders, the pressure is almost unbearable. Son Heung-min's star power as probably the best Korean footballer of all time meant that in 2018, the entire Korean national team relied on him to do something special. But Korea were poor in their opening game against Sweden and lost the match 1-0, so they were under huge pressure to get a result against Mexico in their second game. But despite Son Heung-min's incredible curled shot into the corner to pull 1 goal back for Korea, they lost 2-1 and were effectively out of the World Cup. In the dressing room later, people could see how much the World Cup means to everyone involved as the president of South Korea came into the dressing room to speak to and console the player. And even though before the tournament, Son had promised not to cry, at that moment, Son felt like he had let everyone down and he burst into tears in front of the president, his face distraught with emotion, and his moment of vulnerability was cruelly captured by the internet, where it became the "Cheers, Son's crying" meme. But Son would get some redemption in his next match as he would score against Germany as South Korea beat the world champions 2-0 and eliminated them from the World Cup. And Sonny isn't the only player who let the weight of expectation get the better of him, as a single moment in the World Cup has caused players to become the most hated people in their country. But staying with 2018, and Panama were a surprise addition to the tournament, qualifying at the expense of the USA. But in a group with England, Belgium, and Tunisia, they were absolute underdogs. And things started badly as Panama lost 3-0 to Belgium, and then, in their next game, England just kept scoring and were 6-0 ahead after just over an hour, with even Jesse Lingard scoring for England. Most teams in this situation would just give up, but Panama just kept fighting, and late in the game, they got a free kick in a good position, and the ball was played into 37-year-old captain Felipe Valois, who slid in and knocked the ball past England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford to score Panama's first ever goal at the World Cup. Their fans celebrated the goal as if they'd won the World Cup, showing how much the tournament means to people around the world. And even England fans applauded this historic feat as Panama ended the match with their heads held high and showed that even if things aren't going your way, if you refuse to give up, then maybe you'll get your reward at the end. And that's the power of the World Cup, as it brings together the entire nation, who, no matter the time difference, will find a way to watch the match, crowding around TVs at bars, at friends' houses, or in the street. For Brazil, the World Cup is life, but in 2018, they got off to a bad start, drawing 1-1 with Switzerland, and then struggling against Costa Rica until late goals by Coutinho and Neymar turned things around. During that match against Costa Rica, a photograph of a young Brazilian fan went viral, as the 12-year-old fan watching the match on TV in the Vila Cruzeiro favela couldn't afford an official Brazil kit and instead was wearing a homemade jersey, a yellow shirt with Coutinho 11 written on the back in green pen, proving that despite not having the money, he was desperate to show his love for Brazil and his idols, as he forgot about life's hardships and put his hopes and dreams in the hands of 11 men on the other side of the world. Somehow, this picture reached Coutinho, and the Barcelona star responded by sending the boy his official Brazil shirt and some other gifts, as he knew that this would mean the world to his young fan. But the World Cup means so much that some people take things too far, and a poor performances even led to the death of one player. But this next player was left clinically depressed after he became the most hated man in the country. England were playing arch rivals Argentina in the round of 16 of the 1998 World Cup, and this match was basically a derby match, as the wounds of the Falklands War and of Diego Maradona's Hand of God had taken the rivalry between the countries to the next level. The scores were tied at 2-2 when David Beckham was fouled by Diego Simeone, but after the foul, Beckham was lying on the floor when he lashed out and kicked Simeone. Although the kick had no power, Simeone fell to the ground like he'd been shot, and the referee sent David Beckham off. Without their talismanic midfielder, England couldn't find a way to score against Argentina and exited the World Cup to a familiar penalty shootout heartbreak. But for Beckham, worse was to come, as the English media blamed him for the World Cup exit, with headlines like 10 brave lions, 1 silly boy. One newspaper published a dartboard with Beckham's face in the middle of it. The English public also took things too far, hanging an effigy of Beckham in a mock execution and booing him relentlessly on the pitch and cheering every brutal tackle on him like it was a goal. This abuse left Beckham clinically depressed, vulnerable, and alone, as the whole country hated him. Somehow, Beckham found a new level of mental strength and went on to win the UEFA Footballer of the Year that season, as Man United won the treble. And there's another footballer who had an even more incredible comeback from the brink, but sometimes defeat is so tough that it can literally break a nation's heart. The 1950 World Cup technically didn't have a final, instead being decided by a group stage. But with Brazil going into the final match at the top of the group, all they had to do was avoid defeat against Uruguay and they would be champion. Brazil had been so dominant that World Cup and in the years before that the press had even started declaring them champions before the match and medals were even made with the players' names on them. And this was because Brazil had absolutely destroyed other South American teams recently, and the last time they played Uruguay, they won 5-1, as well as winning their two other group stage games 7-1 against Sweden and 6-1 against Spain. So the match against Uruguay looked like a foregone conclusion. When it came to the match, huge numbers of fans squeezed into the Maracana Stadium, with some estimates saying more than 200,000 people were in the stands. But Uruguay were not going to roll over, and they even bought some of the newspapers with world champions headlines on them and then urinated on the paper. Brazil just couldn't find a way past Uruguay, who kept the scores goalless at halftime. Even though Brazil scored at the start of the second half, Uruguay came back and scored twice for a shock 2-1 victory. Brazil's fans just could not believe it. The 200,000 fans were stunned into absolute silence. The country practically went into mourning as men cried into their beers long into the evening. The shock was so much that Brazil even changed their kit color from white to yellow, as the old kit was seen as unpatriotic. But Brazil would have plenty of World Cup success in the future thanks to legends such as Pelé, Garrincha, and Tostão. But when Tostão won the World Cup in 1970, he cried for the final 20 minutes of the match, completely overwhelmed by emotion. Tostão was seen as the new king of Brazilian football and was voted one of Brazil's top 5 players of the 20th century and as possibly the world's first false nine. He was the key creator whose vision and passing unlocked the immense talents of Pelé. But shortly before the tournament, Tostão suffered a devastating injury while playing for Cruzeiro when a ball struck him in the face and he suffered a detached retina that could have led to him losing his eyesight. But he flew to the USA for emergency surgery to save his vision. Despite this, playing football again was a real challenge, and he was close to missing out on the World Cup. Luckily, he recovered enough to get the call-up. His vision and skill was crucial, providing the key pass when Brazil beat England, then scoring twice against Peru, and combining with Pelé for Pelé's opener against Uruguay. So, in the final, when Brazil beat Italy 4-1, Tostão cried for the final 20 minutes of the game, overwhelmed by emotion as he realized Brazil were to be world champions. And after the game, he gave his medal to the ophthalmologist who saved his eyesight and soon retired from football to become a doctor. But while rare, injuries like Tostão's or even worse do happen in football. In 2009, during a preseason tour of Italy, Espanyol's captain Dani Jarque suffered a heart attack in his hotel room and died. He was 26 and left behind his girlfriend, who was 7 months pregnant. Spanish football went into mourning, and many players who were close to the former Spain under-21 footballer really suffered after his death and wanted to do something to commemorate his life. Spain's star midfielder Andres Iniesta said that after Dani Jarque's death, he had no passion in life and felt empty inside. Iniesta spent the next season struggling with injuries and suffering mentally. He came close to not even going to the following summer's World Cup. Dani Jarque was part of a golden generation of Spanish footballers, and though he never made the full national team, his former youth teammates had a chance in 2010 to end Spain's World Cup curse and finally become world champions. Spain beat Portugal and Germany in the knockout rounds to reach the final in Johannesburg against the Netherlands, and at this moment, Iniesta decided he wanted to make a tribute to his fallen friend. So he got one of the staff to write a message on his undershirt. The final itself was a brutal game, and neither side could find the breakthrough until the game went into extra time, and in the 117th minute, Spain finally found a breakthrough as Cesc Fabregas passed the ball to Iniesta, who smashed the ball into the corner of the goal to win the World Cup for Spain. So Iniesta ripped off his shirt to reveal the message, Dani Jarque, always with us. The referee booked Iniesta for his celebration, but in that 117th minute of the match, Iniesta didn't just score a goal. He ended his country's World Cup curse, put his own demons out, and gave his friend the send-off he deserved. But death on the football pitch doesn't always come from health problems. In 1994, Colombia lost their opening match to Romania, meaning all the pressure was on their second game against the USA, as a defeat would see them going home early. Amid this pressure, one Colombian player made a mistake that would have fatal consequences. In the 35th minute of the match at Pasadena's Rose Bowl, Colombia's center back Andres Escobar, a clean, calm defender nicknamed the Gentleman, misread a cross, and 93,000 fans watched as it deflected into his own net to give the USA the lead, and Colombia went on to lose the crucial match 2-1. Despite winning their final game, Colombia were eliminated from the World Cup, and 5 days later, Escobar, who was engaged to be married later that year, was back in his hometown of Medellin, which was known for drug violence. As Escobar was walking across a parking lot, he was confronted and shot 6 times. After every shot, the shooter said the word "goal." Escobar was left for dead in the parking lot, and when he was eventually taken to hospital, it was too late. Andres Escobar died at the age of 27, killed for scoring an own goal. Before his death, he had called the World Cup the most amazing and rare experience, saying, "We'll see each other again soon because life does not end here." More than 100,000 fans attended his funeral, and the whole world was in shock at his death. No footballer should walk onto the pitch fearing for his life, and nothing that happens on the pitch should lead to anyone suffering Andres Escobar's fate.